Hello, dear story lovers. At the amount of 1,000 subscribers, I will post a huge series of special stories for you. Subscribe now. Tom Baxter adjusted the straps of his travel bag, its weight comfortably pressing against his back, as he stepped off the shuttle and onto the bustling platform of Zalera Prime's central spaceport. The air was electric with the hum of activity. Alien vendors shouted in myriad tongues, holographic advertisements flickered across towering walls, and the smell of exotic spices mingled with the faint tang of engine grease. To most, this scene was chaotic, but to Tom, it was oddly comforting. After all, he'd spent decades working in loud, messy shipyards as a mechanic. Now, however, his life had taken an unexpected turn. A windfall from a long-lost relative had given him the opportunity to buy something entirely out of his comfort zone, the Celestial Inn, a boutique hotel located just a short walk from the spaceport. It wasn't a huge place, but its prime location made it a hotspot for travelers of all species. Tom had bought it sight unseen, trusting his gut and the glowing reviews online. Today was his first visit to the hotel, not as the new owner, but as an anonymous guest. He wanted to get an unfiltered sense of how things were run, how the staff treated people, and what the hotel's day-to-day life was really like. As he approached the gleaming facade of the Celestial Inn, he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The building was as impressive as the listings had promised. Its exterior shimmered with a crystalline design that reflected the bustling world around it. A holographic banner floated above the entrance, welcoming travelers in multiple languages. The automated doors slid open with a soft whoosh, and Tom stepped into the lobby. The interior was just as vibrant as the exterior, with glowing walls displaying rotating images of distant nebulae and galaxies. The central floor was a polished obsidian that reflected the holographic stars above, making it feel as though you were walking through the cosmos itself. Guests of all shapes and sizes bustled about. Tall, insectoid forms clicked their mandibles in conversation while squat, furry beings waddled toward the lounge. Tom approached the reception desk, where a figure stood out sharply against the backdrop of swirling stars. Glip, the head receptionist, was unmistakable. Her shimmering blue skin shifted colors subtly, an effect that marked her as a Trinarian. Her high cheekbones and delicate ridges along her scalp gave her an air of elegance, and her uniform was immaculate pressed and spotless. As Tom stepped forward, Glip's large, almond-shaped eyes flicked toward him. Her gaze lingered on his grease-stained overalls and the toolbox he carried, narrowing slightly in assessment. It wasn't a hostile look, but it carried a distinct note of disdain. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice crisp and professional but devoid of warmth. Tom placed his toolbox down with a soft thud and nodded. "Hi, I'm here to check in." Glip blinked, her expression shifting from practiced indifference to a flicker of disbelief. "Check in," she repeated, her tone laced with incredulity. Her gaze shifted pointedly to the toolbox. "You're not here to fix something?" Tom chuckled lightly, brushing a hand across the front of his overalls. "Nope. Just a traveler looking for a place to stay." Glip tilted her head, her lips curving into a tight, skeptical smile. "I see," she said. Her fingers danced across the reception terminal as she accessed the guest registry. "You'll have to forgive my surprise. We don't often get guests dressed for industrial work." Tom nodded amiably, refusing to let her tone get under his skin. "Well, I like to be prepared. You never know when something might need fixing." Her smile tightened further as she handed him a room key card. "Indeed," she said with a tone that suggested she highly doubted he belonged here. "You're on the 3rd floor. Room 312. Elevators are to your left." She paused, then added, "Please try not to bring any mess into the rooms. Our cleaning drones aren't equipped for industrial grease." Tom gave her a small smile, pocketing the key card. "Thanks for the tip," he said, hoisting his toolbox. As he turned to head toward the elevators, he heard a stifled chuckle from another guest in the lobby, clearly at his expense. Walking to the elevator, Tom let out a quiet sigh but smiled to himself. First impressions sure are telling, he thought. This was going to be an interesting stay. Tom's room on the third floor was modest but comfortable. The sleek, metallic walls were adorned with holographic projections of serene alien landscapes, and the furniture, while minimalist, was designed to accommodate a wide variety of species. Setting his toolbox in the corner, Tom took a moment to absorb his surroundings. Despite the less-than-warm welcome from Glip, he was impressed by the hotel's overall design and amenities. It was clear that whoever had built this place had spared no expense in creating a luxurious experience. After settling in, Tom decided to explore the hotel. If he was going to understand how things operated, he needed to see the staff in action. Dressed in his same work attire, grease-stained overalls, and scuffed boots, he made his way back to the lobby. As he exited the elevator, he caught sight of Glip behind the reception desk, her posture impeccably straight, her gaze sharp and focused as she managed the flow of guests with practiced efficiency. Tom walked up to the desk, toolbox in hand, and caught her attention. She glanced up from her terminal, her expression immediately shifting into one of mild exasperation. "You again," she said, her tone edged with impatience. "Is there an issue with your room? The cleaning drones should have taken care of everything." Tom smiled politely. "No issues. Just wanted to ask about the services here. Do you have a repair shop on site, by any chance? Or maybe a tool shed?" Glip raised an elegant brow, clearly unimpressed. "We are a hotel, not a shipyard," she replied dryly. "Our guests typically come here to relax, not to tinker." Tom tilted his head thoughtfully. "Guess I'll have to make do. What about the holographic directories? Do they work well?" Glip frowned, her fingers halting over the keyboard. "Why are you asking about the directories?" Tom shrugged nonchalantly. "Just curious. You know, in case they break down or something." A sigh escaped her lips, and she gestured toward a large holographic panel near the center of the lobby. It displayed a rotating map of the hotel, glowing faintly. "That's the main directory. It's been acting up lately, but we've called someone to fix it. Shouldn't concern you." Tom nodded, stepping closer to examine the device. As he approached, the map flickered, the holograms jittering erratically. It was a minor glitch, but enough to make the system frustrating to use. "Looks like it's having trouble with the alignment algorithm," Tom murmured to himself, leaning closer. Behind him, Glip's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Excuse me. What do you think you're doing?" Tom straightened up and turned to her, his expression calm. "Just taking a look. I can probably fix it if you want." Glip scoffed, placing her hands on her hips. "You? Fix it?" She let out a short, humorless laugh. "This is advanced holographic technology, not some rusty engine from a backwater planet. I don't think you're qualified." Tom raised an eyebrow, the corners of his lips twitching upward in amusement. "I've worked on my fair share of advanced tech," he said. "Engines, translators, holograms, you name it." Her expression hardened. "This isn't some amateur workshop. If you touch that directory and make it worse, you'll be liable for the damages." Tom held up his hands in mock surrender. All right. Just trying to help." Before Glip could respond, a guest approached the desk, a towering reptilian alien with scales that shimmered under the lobby lights. The guest looked flustered, gesturing wildly and speaking in a language Tom didn't recognize. Glip quickly activated her translator device, but the guest's frustration grew as the device produced garbled, nonsensical phrases. "Please remain calm," Glip said, though her voice was strained. She fiddled with the translator, her calm demeanor slipping as the device continued to malfunction. Other guests began to take notice, their murmurs filling the lobby. Tom stepped forward, setting his toolbox down. "Want me to take a look at that?" he asked. Glip shot him an irritated glance. "I've got this under control." Doesn't look like it, Tom said, his tone good-natured but firm. Might save everyone some time if you let me try. She hesitated, clearly torn between her pride and the escalating situation. Finally, with a frustrated huff, she handed him the translator. Tom popped open the device, his fingers moving with practiced ease. Inside, he found a loose neural interface chip, a common issue with older models. Pulling a small soldering tool from his toolbox, he secured the chip in place and reassembled the device in less than a minute. Try it now, he said, handing it back to Glip. She activated the translator, and this time, the device produced clear, accurate phrases. The reptilian guest's expression softened, and he let out a low rumble of gratitude, bowing slightly before heading off. The lobby erupted in polite applause, and Glip stood frozen, her cheeks glowing faintly in what Tom suspected was the Trinarian equivalent of a blush. Just doing my part, Tom said with a grin, picking up his toolbox and heading for the elevator. Let me know if anything else needs fixing. As the elevator doors slid shut behind him, Glip stared after him, her irritation now mixed with a tinge of curiosity and perhaps a hint of respect. The hum of the elevator was the only sound accompanying Tom as he ascended to his room. He leaned against the wall, reflecting on the interaction in the lobby. Glip's irritation had been almost comical, but her obvious pride in her work was something Tom respected. Still, the incident had made it clear, Glip's attitude toward guests, particularly those she deemed unworthy, needed some fine-tuning. Back in his room, Tom sat on the edge of the bed, mulling over how to address these issues without alienating her. For now, though, he had another plan. He needed to see the rest of the hotel in action. Slipping his toolbox into the storage alcove, he changed into a fresh set of overalls, grabbed his personal tablet, and decided to take a more thorough look at the hotel's operations. Later that evening, Tom found himself in the dining area, a spacious, open room that glowed with soft, ambient lighting. Tables of various sizes and shapes catered to guests of different species, and a central bar area served exotic drinks from across the galaxy. The air was filled with lively chatter, laughter, and the occasional clink of glasses. Despite the vibrant atmosphere, Tom couldn't help but notice a faint tension among the staff. Their movements were precise but hurried, their expressions professional but strained. Seated at the bar, Tom watched as Glip entered the room, her sharp gaze sweeping over the dining area. She was evidently in charge, even here. He saw her address a server, a young human who looked visibly flustered. The server had accidentally brought the wrong dish to a table of insectoid guests, and Glip was quick to point out the error in her usual clipped tone. Though the issue was resolved efficiently, Tom couldn't help but notice the human server's flushed cheeks and the way he avoided Glip's gaze afterward. She's good at her job, but there's no warmth there, Tom thought. If this place is going to thrive, that has to change. The next morning, Tom awoke to the sound of raised voices echoing through the hallway. Stepping out of his room, he followed the commotion down to the lobby. There, he found a scene of chaos. Two alien guests, a towering, bipedal Draxilian and a smaller, fur-covered Winter, were locked in a heated argument. Both spoke in their native languages, which only seemed to escalate the confusion. Glip stood between them, trying to mediate, but her translator device had given out, its holographic interface flickering uselessly. "Please, one at a time," she called out, her voice laced with frustration. The guests, however, were far too agitated to listen. Tom stepped forward, toolbox in hand. "Need a hand?" Glip turned to him, her expression a mix of surprise and exasperation. "This isn't the time for your tinkering, human," she snapped, but Tom ignored her, already kneeling to examine the translator device. "It's not just the device," Tom said as he worked. "You need to diffuse the situation. Show them you're trying to understand, even without words." Glip's jaw tightened, but she reluctantly turned back to the guests, gesturing for calm. Meanwhile, Tom worked quickly, identifying the issue, a damaged power conduit causing intermittent failures. Pulling a replacement from his toolbox, he installed it with practiced ease, the device humming back to life in moments. Handing it back to Glip, he said, "Try now." She activated the translator, which immediately began working as intended. The Drexilian and Winter calmed as their words were translated, and with some patient mediation from Glip, the conflict was resolved. The guests offered apologetic bows before departing, leaving the lobby buzzing with relieved murmurs. As Glip turned to Tom, her expression was unreadable. For a long moment, she simply stared at him, her shimmering skin flickering faintly as she processed what had just happened. "You seem to have a knack for fixing things," she said finally, her tone less sharp than usual. Tom smiled. "I've been at it for a while." Before she could reply, the sound of approaching footsteps drew their attention. A tall, well-dressed Sorlian green-skinned and impeccably tailored strode into the lobby. This was Gregan, the hotel's general manager. His eyes lit up when he saw Tom, and he extended a hand warmly. "Mr. Baxter!" Gregan exclaimed. "I didn't realize you were here already. We weren't expecting you until next week." The lobby fell silent. Glip's head snapped toward Tom, her eyes wide with disbelief. Tom shook Gregan's hand with a grin. "I wanted to see the place in action before making any changes. Thought I'd get a feel for how things work without the staff knowing who I was." Gregan chuckled. "Always the hands-on approach, I see. I hope everything's to your satisfaction." Tom glanced at Glip, whose expression had shifted to one of stunned realization. "I think there's a lot of potential here," he said, his tone light. "But there's room for improvement." Gregan nodded enthusiastically. "We're at your service, of course. Let me know how I can assist." As Gregan returned to his duties, Tom turned to Glip, whose face was now glowing a faint purple clear Trinarian blush. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. "You've got a good operation here," Tom said kindly, breaking the silence. "But there's always something to fix, isn't there?" Her cheeks darkened further, but she managed to nod. "I didn't know," she stammered. Tom chuckled, patting his toolbox. "That's the point. Don't worry, everyone deserves a chance to grow." Without another word, he headed back to his room, leaving Glip standing in the middle of the lobby, her pride shaken but her respect for Tom undeniably rising. The morning after the revelation, Tom made his way to the hotel's dining lounge for breakfast. The room was alive with the murmur of conversations and the clinking of utensils against plates. As he entered, the staff straightened noticeably, a mix of nerves and curiosity in their expressions. It was clear the news of his true identity had spread. Glip, standing near the central coffee station, caught sight of him. She hesitated, her shimmering blue skin flickering faintly as if struggling to decide whether to approach. Finally, she squared her shoulders and walked over, her usual air of confidence tempered with humility. "Good morning, Mr. Baxter," she said, her voice unusually soft. "May I join you?" Tom gestured to the seat across from him. "Of course. And it's just Tom. No need for formalities." She sat down, folding her hands neatly on the table. "I owe you an apology," she began, her tone sincere. "I treated you unfairly when I thought you were just another guest. Or, worse, a maintenance worker. That was wrong of me." Tom nodded, letting her words settle. "I appreciate that, Glip. But it's not just about me. I've noticed how you interact with others, the staff, the guests. You're efficient, no doubt about it, but efficiency isn't everything. People come to a place like this for more than just a room and a meal. They want to feel welcome." Her gaze dropped to the table, her shimmering skin darkening slightly. "I suppose I've been focusing too much on keeping things running smoothly. I didn't realize how much that might cost in personal connection." Tom leaned forward, his voice warm but firm. "There's no shame in being proud of your work. But a hotel like this thrives on kindness as much as order. It's not just the fancy rooms or the holographic directories, it's the people who make the place feel alive. Glip nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. You're right. I've been so focused on perfection that I forgot what makes perfection meaningful. Tom smiled, leaning back in his chair. I wasn't perfect when I started out as a mechanic. Made plenty of mistakes. But you know what helped me the most? The people around me, mentors, co-workers, even customers who were patient enough to teach me. That's what I want this place to be, a community, not just a business. Glip's lips curved into a small, genuine smile. A community. I like that. Over the next few days, Tom and Glip worked closely together to reimagine the hotel's atmosphere. They held meetings with the staff, encouraging open dialogue about what could be improved. Glip, to her credit, took Tom's advice to heart, making a conscious effort to connect with the team and the guests on a more personal level. One particularly memorable moment came when a young server accidentally spilled a tray of drinks in the dining lounge. Instead of reprimanding the worker as she might have in the past, Glip stepped in to help clean up, cracking a light-hearted joke about gravity not being what it used to be. The staff member, initially mortified, relaxed and laughed along with the other guests. The incident, rather than a disaster, became a moment of camaraderie. As the weeks passed, the changes became apparent. The lobby, once a place of cold efficiency, began to buzz with warmth and energy. Glip's interactions with guests grew more natural, and the staff seemed happier and more confident under her guidance. The guests' noticed tour reviews began to pour in, praising not only the hotel's facilities but the exceptional kindness and attentiveness of the staff. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon of Zalera Prime, Tom stood on the balcony of his room, gazing out at the glowing cityscape. He heard a knock at the door and turned to find Glip standing there, holding a tray with 2 glasses of a shimmering Trinarian beverage. Thought we could toast to the new and improved Celestial Inn, she said with a smile. Tom chuckled and invited her in. They clinked glasses, the sound ringing softly against the hum of the city below. To second chances, Glip said, raising her glass. To teamwork, Tom replied. As they drank, the faint tension that had once defined their relationship was replaced by an easy camaraderie. The hotel, now a beacon of hospitality and understanding, stood as a testament to what could happen when pride gave way to humility and efficiency made room for kindness. And for Tom, the Celestial Inn had become more than just an investment, it was a home.